Good morning. I am Kevin Price. Delighted to be with you. Going to spend some time talking today about you and your business. Going to spend some time talking about a group called Oath Keepers. You know, it's imperative for us as individuals. What good does it do to have business if you have no liberty? And liberty is really very vulnerable at this time in a way we hadn't seen in our history. And frankly, in the middle of World War II, we weren't as vulnerable as we are now because the enemy is within, and we don't seem to even realize that. You know, that sounds kind of conspiratorial, but you've got a government that is so overtly in our face, unilateral in its actions. There's nothing conspiratorial about it. Conspiratorial is done in secret. You know, we've got a government today that simply says we're running on autopilot. We do what we want. As long as we've got pens and we've got paper, we're going to continue to create decrees that we're going to treat as if they were the rule of law or the law of the land. And so it's a scary time. And so it's time for us to become more aware of that. Jay Stang is with a group called oathkeepers.org. And Jay, welcome to the program. Tell us a little bit about your group.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me on the show. Well, the name of the group is actually Oath Keepers. Oathkeepers.org is our website. But, you know, all that aside, we're a group of former military personnel, active duty veterans, retired military, peace officers, firefighters, anybody who's taken the oath to the Constitution in an official capacity. And our sole reason for existing is to educate everybody who has taken the oath that they have an individual obligation to uphold, support, and defend the Constitution. So, in a nutshell, that is our organization, and that is our goal.
Mm-hmm. So, what is the what are your main objectives or your main projects to work towards that goal?
Our main objectives are something we call Reach, Teach, and Inspire, which involves just simply talking to your average 18-year-old private who has heard of the Constitution, went to high school, but really doesn't know what's in it, and furthermore, doesn't know what he's obligated himself to when he took a solemn oath to support and defend the Constitution. So in boot camp, and anybody listening who's in the military will agree with this, they tell you that you're not obligated to follow an unlawful order. The problem is that they stop there and they don't further explain an example of what could be an unlawful order. So it could be anything from clean your room, show up to formation on time on Monday morning, or if you're given an order to confiscate the firearms of Americans to do that. So no one really tells them what an unlawful order is. And so that is what we seek to do, is to fill the void in the education of your average 18-year-old private, and including, unfortunately, captains, majors, and up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, there's a lot of concern that even the current military today is trained differently than the military just a generation ago. And part of that is poised to get them inclined to do things that they were never historically intended to do. Your thoughts?
Well, this has been going on for a long time. In 1993, Lieutenant Commander Guy Cunningham, who spoke at our first meeting in 2009 in Lexington, he was the author of that infamous 20 on Palm survey that asked Marines if they would fire on American citizens or take their guns if ordered to. And a third of United States Marines said they would. And this was 21 years ago. So this is not something that's happened overnight. And it's happened under administrations of both the Republican and Democratic parties. So violating the Constitution is a bipartisan effort.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, really what it comes down to is, do you want fast-track totalitarianism or slow-track totalitarianism?
Right.
But that's basically what both parties are offering in the end.
Exactly. So, and if you contrast the 1993, and Guy Cunningham's a good guy, he wanted to know how many people still would follow the Constitution. If you go back to the 1920s, my dad had a copy of the soldier's manual for the average U.S. soldier in the Army, and one of the topics it covered was how bad democracy was.
Yeah. Actually, it was inside the book cover up until 1920. As soldiers in the United States Army, you are ambassadors to the rest of the world. And when people ask you what form of government you have, you tell them a republic, which is rule of law, not a democracy, which is ruled by mob.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So Now, a good parallel to that is look at the executive orders in the pen, the pen and the phone. How does that affect business in this country? We've long been lauded for our stable business environment, adherence to the rule of law, fair contracts, and that is going down the drain as well. So if you think about it in a broad liberty scope, aside the obvious hair triggers of gun confiscation or warrantless searches, the business attractiveness of the United States is declining rapidly because people see how arbitrary and capricious it is. Look at Obama, and we all agree Obamacare is unconstitutional, but if it's in place, at least follow it. But Obama isn't even doing that.
Yeah. Obama's even breaking his own laws.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of funny in a scary sort of way. Yeah, I've never seen in my entire life people just by decree suspend various aspects of the law. I've just never seen that.
Well, he knows that he can do it without
it's troubling.
He can do it without fear of repercussions because even if John Boehner were to, find religion and do his job and impeach Obama, it would die in the Senate. So,
but who cares?
Do whatever.
The opportunity, in my opinion, the opportunity cost of doing that would be worth it. That means he'd be so much more preoccupied with defending himself rather than doing more of this mayhem. And I've heard that excuse. I don't care. Whatever the Senate does not abdicate the House from doing what it's responsible to do.
It's a question of principle, Kevin. If Boehner was really interested in upholding his oath to the Constitution, we would have had impeachment articles on the desk years ago.
Yeah,
that's why oath-keeping is so important and oath-breaking is so dangerous is because it's a trend that goes from the top down. The leader of our country leads by example, and the example filters down to everybody.
Should have been the very first thing Boehner did, January 2011, when they handed over the speakership. Should have been the number one item because he already had 2 years accumulated of scandal. By the end of the first term as Speaker, Boehner had Fast and Furious on the table and God knows what else. And so, it's just unconscionable. Well, I really appreciate you spending time with us. This is very timely topic. Jay Stang, oathkeepers.org, oathkeepers.org. I encourage you to learn more about them. Thanks for being with us.
No problem, Kevin. My pleasure.
When we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you, best content here. It shows up over there at usdailyreview.com over there. Like it on Facebook. Follow it on Twitter.